Coming up on Over a Barrel.
I thought I was going to be the Grinch on the program, Matt, but I think you've taken that job from me, so I appreciate that.
Over a Barrel starts right now. Welcome to the program on Over a Barrel. I'm Matt McClain alongside Patrick DeHaan, and it is almost Christmas. But
little holiday cheer on the program today.
Yes, but that doesn't mean that gas prices are necessarily going to be an excellent Christmas present.
The Grinch has entered the building.
Doggone it, man. I told you last week I was going for $1.99 a gallon, and now here we are in a serious problem. Well, I won't go that far, but it sounds like gas prices might be on the way up. We will get to that in the program right here on Over a Barrel. But first things first, how are you, sir?
Well, I'm terrific. I thought I was going to be the Grinch on the program, Matt, but I think you've taken that job from me, so I appreciate that. You've been hired. Stamp this in. He's in.
Yeah,
he's now the Grinch, and I don't know. I can't really be Santa because I'm not delivering any. Well, I guess I'm delivering some lower prices.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about some of this. I am seeing releases from Gas Buddy showing that gas prices are expected now to rise slightly. That's the exact terminology of the top.
Slight. Yeah, that's right.
I'm not okay. I was pushing for $1.99 a gallon, and you were telling me it's possible last week, and now all of a sudden, the crystal ball looks a bit more snowy at this point as you shake it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you shook it up too hard last week.
Apparently.
Matt. What's good news for the economy is generally bad news for your wallet at the pump. Typically, those positive headlines that push your retirement, your 401k, your investments up, typically push gas prices up too. And that's what we got last week was a dose of good news from potentially good news from the Federal Reserve. Jerome Powell signaling that the Federal Reserve is preparing to potentially cut interest rates next year. And of course, that would be good, right? That'd probably foster more economic growth. So after that announcement, after the Federal Reserve met, oil prices jumped significantly and wholesale gas prices jumped significantly by the tune of, I think it was like 15 to 25 cents here. And then the Red Sea, the Houthis, rebels essentially in the Red Sea. If you've seen some video of the Houthis attacking merchant vessels and oil vessels in the Red Sea, that's not good news. BP last week said enough's enough. They are going to reroute away from the Red Sea, and some of the insurance companies that insure these very large vessels are also contemplating that can add a significant amount of time to transit, Matt, if you route around the African coast instead of going through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. So that's where we are. The wholesale price of gasoline bottomed up pretty quick. And that's why we're sitting here, I suppose, sitting here talking about gas prices inching up. But, Matt, it's not the end of the world. The national average is 4 cents higher than where it was early last week. So we're at 306. If I look at some of the analytics, the different ways to look at gas prices, it's still pretty good news. In fact, the most common gas prices, the top 5 most common gas prices across the United States are all still below $3, $2.99, $2.89, $2.69, $2.79. And this is fairly unusual. The 5th most common price at $2.95. Typically, all of those most common prices all end in a 9 just because $2.99 sounds better than 3 and $2.89 sounds better than $2.90. So the metrics aren't all bad though, Matt. I mean, right? You still got some cheap-ish gas down by you.
Well, for the moment. Now, I have seen some prices fluctuating as I've been, driving out and about. And thankfully, this is kind of, for me, video production, what I normally do. It's kind of entered into more of a bit of a slow season for the next month or two, which is always kind of nice to have a bit of a rest, so I don't do as much traveling. But what I have seen, prices are still in the 260s range, somewhere in that neighborhood. I did see one gas chain try to bump it up to $2.99 to see who would follow. They did. They bumped it up to $2.99 at all of their locations just to see if everybody else would jump on board with that, and nobody did. So
they are taking the title of Grinch away from you. So there we go.
Right? So, yeah, so that was interesting. Now I've got something else to ask you about. This has just broken in both NBC News and ABC News. I don't think you have seen this yet. It has apparently just broken within the past 30 minutes. But I do want you to kind of comment on it, which is President Xi of China has warned
I saw that.
Biden during the summit that Beijing will reunify Taiwan with China. They prefer to do it peacefully and not by force. But they are planning to do so and reunify with Taiwan in either 2025 or 2027, telling Biden that they were wrong because he has not set a time frame, according to the two current and one former official briefed on the meeting, referencing public predications by U.S. military leaders. Chinese officials also asked in advance of the summit that Biden make a public statement after the meeting saying that the United States supports China's goal of peaceful unification with Taiwan. The White House rejecting that request.
Wasn't it just a month or two ago we commented on the fact that Xi had told the U.S. that China has no plans to, reunify, and I think at the time, Matt, it was just like, they can say that, and it may be true. We don't have plans, and then suddenly overnight plans materialize, and here we are, and look who can't be trusted. But I can't say it's a surprise. It's really going to be interesting to see how this dynamic goes down. I think, given the mentality, the kind of anti-China climate that's grown here because of their contentious relationship between the U.S., it's going to be interesting to see how this goes, especially with the major election coming later this year. You could expect to see that politicians are going to weigh in pretty heavily on this. This could be a risk in the year ahead, depending on how it all plays out. Certainly a very interesting headline.
And one of which that if the U.S.'s statements up until now are proven to be true, the U.S. has sworn that they will, that the U.S. will protect Taiwan's interests and so on and so forth. And that's some ad-libbing on my part, some paraphrasing. Those are not the exact quotes, but that's essentially what U.S. officials have said, that they are there for Taiwan. So that could be quite an interesting situation developing, and one that I can't imagine would have zero impact on gasoline prices.
Well, it might have zero impact. Just again, China is not a big producer of oil, so they're a big consumer. So from that standpoint, it's all about supply and demand, and China, reunifying with Taiwan, whether it's by peace or by force, doesn't really have much of an impact.
But from the instability aspect, do you think that could create some rattled nerves across the globe?
Well, rattled nerves, sure. But, I don't know that you can say something that China's telling us about and before it potentially happens makes the situation less stable. So, it's potentially now expected. I think the devil, as it always is, in the details.
Yeah.
Right? Is there going to be a war? Is the U.S. going to defend? Are other countries going to defend Taiwan? What does Taiwan want? So, a lot of these headlines that have to do with geopolitical issues just don't always have a whole lot. What's interesting on the side of this is that at the same token, talking about China and kind of pivoting over to Canada. Canada yesterday is slowing down the pace of the shift to EVs. They want to ban internal combustion engines by 2035, but another country that is potentially slowing things down a bit is Canada. And it's certainly interesting to keep an eye on what is happening as various countries kind of have been slowing down their target of evolving to EVs. The future. It's kind of virtue signaling for politicians to say we're going to end EVs, and then turn around and ease the timeline.
Yeah, you're absolutely right when it comes to that. It's funny because I actually just read a story regarding a cobalt mine in Missouri, which is one of the main ingredients for lithium-ion batteries, which goes into EVs, they have apparently discovered the largest cobalt concentrated area in North America in a town called Fredericktown, Missouri. And they are set to start mining it at the end of next year, which, according to this company, will take the U.S.'s dependence on China for being able to provide those metals to make the lithium-ion batteries and make the U.S. and North America 100% sustainable internally rather than relying on China for any of those metals.
Yeah, that'll be interesting because as many Americans know, a lot of those metals do come from China. Pivoting back to gas prices here too, since it's the holidays and we've got a lot of good news to share. Is the fact that though prices are inching up, Matt, I'm looking at the median price today. We have over 90,000 stations below $3 a gallon, and for those listening. In Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, I know your prices are going up, and it caught me by surprise this morning because I had been anticipating that prices would cycle in these areas. Matt, I think you're just on the fringe of these areas that engage in price cycling, but we've talked about it before. The interesting thing the thing that happened this morning was these Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio along with Kentucky, is seeing prices go up dramatically, but it's one of these circumstances where the low prices are disappearing, but some of the high price stations actually may go down as a result of this. And these three states are seeing their prices go up to $2.99 a gallon today. So some of the lowest prices of the season that we had this brief window of opportunity are temporarily disappearing. I still think there's going to be a window of opportunity. When you look at government data today, by the way, refineries actually raised output in the last week. With oil prices sinking and with gas prices sinking, conventional wisdom would say, hey, refineries are going to stop churning out as much product because there's so much of it, it's depressing prices. But the weekly Energy Information Administration report this week actually highlighted that refinery utilization rose by 2.2 percentage points. Matt, that's like Apple producing more iPhones with nobody buying them.
Yeah.
Right. So it was very interesting to see that refineries are actually increasing output. Gasoline production increased to 10 million barrels a day. Bottom line here is there's going to be a lot of gasoline left in storage at the end of the season that's going to have to be purged, and refineries are probably going to have to offer it at pretty cutthroat prices. So the potential for $2.99 a gallon national average probably won't happen before Christmas now. But it still could, we could still make a run at it again down the road.
Well, I will tell you, this was the pricing information that I gave to you was about 72 hours ago that some of the stations here had tried to bump it up to $2.99 and that it hadn't worked. So they lowered their prices back down. Well, apparently now it's working because I'm seeing a lot of $2.95, $2.97, $2.99 prices across my region. I'm not happy with this. Is there something you can do? I mean, is there anything you can do?
I can tell you to wait probably 72 hours and prices will probably be a little bit lower. And that's what we mean by prices cycle. After they go up, they start going back down. So, just keep in mind that eventually prices will go back down. The good news, Matt, today is that the wholesale price of gasoline is taking a little bit lower. So after a big, bountiful week of increases, now we might see a couple decreases. Another piece of information, Matt, that I think most listeners would find really interesting this morning with the government report that comes out every week. The United States just hit another all-time record. This time, U.S. domestic oil production reached a new record high, 13.3 million barrels a day. Let's let that sink in. The U.S. is by far the world's largest oil producer. We're producing like 4 or 5 million barrels now more than the Saudis are because the Saudis have been cutting production. So keep that in mind. That's significant. That's a huge achievement to be producing 13.3 million barrels a day. That's also softening the blow of some of those OPEC production cuts. So the Biden administration, doesn't really get a whole lot of credit for this, but they have failed at trying to derail U.S. oil production. So we'll say that.
Yeah, that's, well, that's at least, I suppose, a mixed bag, if you will. A little bit of good news there, I suppose. I don't know. Where are we going to go from here in the beginning of the first month or so of the new year, 2024? I'm very curious as to where you think prices that, we are looking at. I am very surprised in my local neck of the woods, so to speak, to see the prices suddenly jolt basically 30 cents in a matter of hours without any major reason in my brain as to why.
Well, again, the Federal Reserve, by the way. So you're catching two different things. So wholesale prices, as I mentioned, went up about 25 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
That's a huge jump. And keep in mind, stations, especially in your neck of the woods, have been particularly aggressive with lowering prices. Some of them, a station has to make a profit margin, and they also have to account for what they sell gasoline for. So stations in your neck of the woods that were selling at $2.60 were probably making maybe 10 cents a gallon. So if the wholesale price goes up, Matt, they suddenly go from making 10 cents to losing 15 cents.
That's true.
And so then they have to readjust. Stations cannot survive earning 0 cents per gallon. So they have to raise it at least 15 cents to get to 0 cents per gallon. Normally stations will make 20 or 30 cents a gallon. So take into consideration, if you add that 20, 30 cent a gallon margin that they make, adding in that the fact that they have to lift prices at least 15 cents to get to break even, that means they raise at least 35 to as much as 50 cents a gallon. That's where these price cycles come from. They're huge. So, it's always tough explaining why these big hikes happen, but essentially stations ignore daily fluctuations in the wholesale price of gasoline, and instead they wait and they raise prices in one fell swoop for a week of ignoring the market changes.
But can't I rewind to last week where we were talking about the possibility of $1.99 and just live there in denial?
That would be nice. I mean, but there's still a couple stations in Colorado at $1.99. There's that pocket of stations that, Evans and Greeley are still, there's a station in each one of those, 7-Eleven at $2.03, 7-Eleven at $1.99, the Quick Trip at $1.79. So there's still a bit of a price war happening. Make sure you pack your Gas Buddy app if you're hitting the road for the holidays. But yeah, Matt, the holiday spirit's alive and well. Gas prices today are basically at what they were a year ago. We're actually down a whopping penny from this date 1 year ago. So right on par. Last year, by the way, we stopped short. We failed to get under $3 last year. We stopped at $3.05. This year we stopped at $3.02. So for the second year in a row, we stopped short on falling under $3 a gallon. And I feel like there's a Seinfeld reference in there, right? Stopping short. That isn't that George Costanza's dad's move, stopping short or something?
It sounds about right. Yes. You're not wrong.
Got to get the Seinfeld episode in there. But the new year, kind of zooming back to the new year, Matt, Gas Buddy will have our 2024 fuel outlook available next Thursday. That's the 28th of December. So if you're looking at your calendar, we've got a lot of interesting stuff in there. I can't really divulge what's in it because I'm not totally done with it, but
I can ask you the following question that I know I know you can answer this question. It cannot possibly be easy in this world environment to put together an outlook for the following year.
That was not the question I thought you were going to ask, but no,
what'd you think I was going to ask? And I'll ask
I thought you were going to try and get some, get some preliminary information on what the forecast says. No, but to your point, you're 100% right, Matt. It's not just being a petroleum analyst anymore at this point, right? And just predicting the year's ups and downs. It's not like just being a talking spokesman for a website at that point. It's about putting your geopolitical hat on. And just like you, right, have put your geopolitical hat on talking about China. I mean, those are the types of uncertainties, Matt, that make it very difficult to accurately predict prices for the next year, right? Because anything can really happen. And you have to take kind of the middle of the road approach. You have to have confidence. And by the way, what's new in our 2024 fuel outlook this year is something we've never done before. We literally have told people what the range of average prices will be for the holidays, because I know a lot of Americans like to know, hey, what's it going to be like for July 4? We have a special slide in our gasoline forecast that delves into just that. And it gives you our confidence level as well. We put a confidence level so people will know, is this a holiday that I should absolutely plan on spending this much, or is there lower confidence? And we do that so that people can plan accordingly.
Yeah, no, it's understandable. So I just, it's really sad that whenever I see like, your 30-cent jolts per gallon, et cetera, that has to be difficult in an average situation all the way around. And no, I know when things are embargoed, I'm not supposed to ask, and I know you can't tell me, but I did recognize that I could at least ask if it was going to be difficult to put together, because one would assume that it would be. I can't imagine something like that being like, oh, well, here, let me just spend 10 minutes on it and hit send. I just can't imagine that's how it works.
If it was that simple, that would certainly help immensely here ahead of the end of the year.
I would think so. And you have been doing that report for a very long time. I remember even getting that report when I was anchoring news in Tampa, anchoring news in Chicago, anchoring news in Paducah, Kentucky. I mean, just about everywhere. I always remember getting that report at the end of each year. You've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, we've been doing it now 11 years. For those that haven't ever looked at our forecast, basically what we do is tell people what we believe the national average will be every month with a included range. We predict the yearly national average. So, so motorists can say, okay, I need to set aside this much. But yeah, this is our 11th year of doing it. Our original fuel outlook was released back in 2012. So it's been a long time. Some years we've been more accurate than others, but I gotta say I'm really happy with our.
So obviously, making those particular forecasts are something that have become old habit for you, but nevertheless not an easy thing for you to do. Jumping into more of the immediate future, where price-wise do you think in the first few weeks of January? I know you've talked about the next week or so into Christmas, barring any kind of geopolitical situation that could suddenly just erupt across the globe. I know the Red Sea is creating some issues, not necessarily, well, I don't know exactly how much oil goes through the Red Sea, but a lot of other commodities are shipped through the Red Sea. Is that going to possibly play a role in some things?
Yeah, that's something to keep an eye on. It certainly could. I mean, there's a lot of oil and other shipments that flow through the Red Sea on their way to the Suez Canal. So yeah, that's a big one, Matt. Keep an eye on what happens there, because that has the potential to be certainly very impactful. So it's one of those factors that you didn't have on your radar even like a month or two ago. I mean, even at the original onset of Hamas attacking Israel, that was not something that people foresaw. So, yeah, very, very interesting how that went.
Absolutely. So gas prices really for the next few weeks, you're kind of predicting basically where we are now, maybe a few cents more.
Yeah, I think we could bounce around here, Matt, in these lower prices. They could go a little bit lower, a little bit higher. Keep in mind, it's comments like the Federal Reserve came out with that are just totally unpredictable that can drive markets. So if there's a Fed meeting, always keep a close eye on what comments are. Comparing it to the prior months will give you some hints on what the Fed is thinking. And it's those types of meetings that really can move the needle. So I'm hopeful, Matt, that we'll probably stay, within 10 or 15 cents a gallon of where we are today for a national average. I might add, this is not necessarily true in your backyard. There may be a little bit more price fluctuation, but I think by and large, Matt, we'll kind of hang out in this low $3 range nationally, and we could go a little bit lower into January and February.
Well, that's something that I certainly won't complain about. And I guess that would be also if a massive winter storm doesn't blow through, creating a lot of heating oil refinery type situations where the surge would have to take place in some. I mean, it's really kind of a delicate balance. Really, as I'm talking it out loud, I'm like, well, if this happens, that could happen. If that happens, this could happen. And it's like a list of dominoes that could.
A lot of what if and then statements, right? This is like programming in like C++ if and then statements. I just looked at the Climate Prediction Center, by the way, and they still have most of the United States above average through basically the 29th of December. Most of the country, with the exception of areas of Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas that are near normal. Matt, areas where you'd expect snowfall and big snows this time of year are well above average, and that includes basically the upper Midwest, Michigan, northern Indiana, northern Ohio, northern Illinois, all of Wisconsin, most of Minnesota are well above average temperatures. Even the 8 to 14 day shows most cold climates. We're talking north of a line from Texas to South Carolina. Most areas north of that line are above average. So, and that goes into January 2nd. So I don't, there's not a whole lot of cold weather. And even the 3 to 4 week temperature outlook, which was made a couple of days ago, which goes through mid-January, shows very warm weather in the northern half of the country.
Listen, I'm not going to complain about that. You know my philosophy when it comes to cold weather. I'm counting down the moments where I can make another Florida visit, and I would love to do that in January or February. So you get no complaints from me about mild weather. Has Chicago even seen any snow this year?
Yeah, we saw a couple flurries earlier this week. You have to go all the way back to Halloween, Matt. It was our first measurable snowfall. I think we got like a half an inch or something small like that. But yeah, we've gotten some flurries here and there. Nothing has really stuck for more than a day or two. I'm okay with this. Although I got to say, for the holidays, just bring it on. If Mother Nature decided to drop 6 to 12 inches of her finest powder, I would not complain much.
As somebody who spent a lot of Christmas seasons in Florida, I was just fine with the sugar white beaches in my mind being snow. I was totally fine with that. So, you can have your snow. I'll take the sand. Life is fine. It's bright white. It works.
It really does. And you know what? At the end of the day, I'll take these $2.99 prices all day long. Gas prices just went up in Michigan, Indiana, Ohio today, $2.99. I'm thinking, what world we live in? Like 3 weeks ago, that's like super cheap, and I'd be loving that. So all in all, not a bad time to hit the road for the holiday. Maybe we'll hit the holiday with a couple tasty beverages. This is over a barrel after all. So
that's very true. Well, I will say, Patrick, it has been fun, and keeping an eye on the gas prices it's something that we both very much enjoy, and hopefully in the new year we'll be able to do that on every single week.
That's
and
right.
More often whenever we want as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. I am very much looking forward to your annual report, as I always do every year.
I don't know. Are you going to look at if it's bad? Are you going to look at it?
I always put my glasses on the edge of my nose, at the bottom of my nose. No, I don't actually do that, but I actually do read it through very carefully. Always have, ever since you started doing them. And yes, and this way it allows me to ask you questions that will hopefully stump you on these podcasts. At least I have a new reason for reading them. That's where
there you go. Absolutely. And hey, Matt, it's been a great year
toes.
For our listeners who've joined us all the way since February when we started our Over a Barrel podcast. And as we get close to the end of the year, I feel like got to thank all the listeners out there who've stuck with us and sent us questions. And haven't got a whole lot of them in the last week or two. So if you have any questions, shoot us an email to podcast@gasbuddy.com. Always love to hear from you. But want to wish everyone a very happy and safe holidays, whether that's Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever you partake in. It's been a terrific year, and hey, enjoy the low gas prices if you're out and about, and download that Gas Buddy app.
Absolutely. You have yourselves a great holiday season. We will talk again coming up next week, right here on Over a Barrel. Have a good one.